guys, Trans here, back in another Transformers theory. And in today's theory, we're going to be covering what happened to the twins during Dark of the Moon, thanks to your guys' vote of 64%. Now, if you don't remember who the twins were, here's a quick recap on them. The twins, better known as the notorious Skids and Mudflap, made their debut in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, for them being part of the first wave of Autobots, whom included RC, Elita 1, Chromia, Sideswipe, and the Wreckers. But once they came down, they were stationed at Nest, while Wreckers were moved to be stationed at NASA to work on the Autobot ship Byzantium, which would later bring down the second wave of Autobots. But back in Nest, the twins would start their Autobot training in Diego Garcia, where it would take the form of a beaten-up ice cream truck, but because they scanned it both at the same time, it allowed them to combine, and he would use it as their vehicle mode during training. And that's all the events between Transformers 2007 and Revenge of the Fallen for the twins. But moving on into Revenge of the Fallen, the twins, along with Sideswipe, RC, Chromia, and Elita 1, were sent to Shanghai to take out any Decepticon activity in the area. The twins would play as decoy to lure in any Decepticons in the area, and once the Decepticon scout Sideways showed up, the twins were hot on his tail, until they turned a corner at such a high speed, which forced the two to separate, which sparked an argument between them shortly after. And once all the Decepticon targets in the area were terminated, the Autobots went back to Nest HQ, where the twins would receive two new vehicle forms, which would give them the advantage of not being stuck together as one. And later in Revenge of the Fallen, the twins would group up with Bumblebee to take Sam to a remote location, so the Decepticons would not be able to find him, which would lead them to eventually go to Egypt to hunt for the Matrix of Leadership. And in one point of their journey, Mudflap loses all hope once they make it to the supposed location of the Matrix and is nowhere to be found. And this sparked an argument between Skids and Mudflap, which would lead them into a fight, which would end up Skids throwing Mudflap into a wall, cracking it, where it led Sam and the gang to the Tomb of the Primes, where the Matrix of Leadership was in its resting place. And after finding the Matrix, the twins, along with Bumblebee and their human allies, departed, making their way to where the military was stationed, so they could use the Matrix of Leadership to revive the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. But during this journey, they ran into a complication, and that complication was Starscream. And to protect the Matrix of Leadership from Starscream's grasp, Skids and Mudflap, along with Simmons and Leo, acted as decoy to lure Starscream away from Bumblebee, Sam, and Michaela. But during this decoy, it ended up attracting the unwanted attention of the Constructicons, whom attacked by combining into Devastator and started to vacuum up their surrounding area, which led to Mudflap losing his grip and flying into Devastator's mouth, leading to Skids, Leo, and Simmons to believe that he died. But this would not be the case in a twisted turn of events when Mudflap shot his way out of Devastator's head and started smacking him in the eye, to wear him down and to distract him, so any other humans in the area would have the chance to evacuate. Then Skids took the chance to help his twin by climbing up Devastator's arm and launching out his grapple hook, so Mudflap could get down safely. And once they got to a safe point on Devastator's arm, Mudflap accidentally shot Skids in the face, sending both of them down to the ground, which would be the last scene for the twins in Revenge of the Fallen. But since they appear in Dark of the Moon, we can conclude that they did not get killed by Devastator. So how did they escape from Devastator, and where did they end up? Well, if we look at the scene where Devastator climbs the pyramid, it is proven that Skids and Mudflap led Leo and Simmons to safety by standing under Devastator until they had enough clearance to escape from. And that opening was where Devastator started to climb out of the construction pit, because since Devastator had to use at least one of his legs to climb out, it would have given Skids and Mudflap more than enough clearance room to escape, which it did successfully, proven by a line that Simmons says,
"We're gonna help you, soldier. Let's get these wounded clear of the bird."
As we can see, Simmons says, "Let's get these wounded clear from the ferry," and then he points off screen. Now by using this info, we can determine that the thing that he points to is the twins. And to further back this claim up, as we saw when Devastator was climbing the pyramid, there was no other ground vehicles in the area to transport the soldiers to safety, which meant that Skids and Mudflap were the only chance of survival for the soldiers. And to even further back this up, we can see that there are 5 soldiers in the helicopter. 1 is on the ground, 2 pilots, and 2 passengers. A Chevy Trax, which is Mudflap's vehicle form, can hold up to 5 people, if you count the middle seat between the 2 back passenger seats. And a Chevy Beat, which is Skids' vehicle mode, can hold up to only 4 people, since the back seat is way too small to hold up 1 person. And in later models, it was swapped into a cup holder. And with this information in mind, Skids would have 4 soldiers loaded up on him, while Leo would load up the last remaining soldier into Mudflap, where he would later go into the driver's seat of him. And a soldier with him would tell him how to take a safe route back to the military camp, where later the twins would load off the military soldiers at the camp, so medical assistance could attend to them. And after the two would stay back at the camp to scout out for any remaining Decepticons in the area so they could take them out. And because of this is why we saw Leo and Simmons at the end of the film with the military soldiers by the camp. And the last thing that happened to the twins during Revenge of the Fallen was, once the battle was done, they were loaded on an aircraft carrier ready to go home along with all the other Autobots. Now finally moving on to the events between Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon for the twins. During this time, Nest gave Skids and Mudflap 2 new updated alternate modes, which would be a green and orange Chevy Spark, each with their own corresponding color as a stripe, which would make the twins become more stealthy in combat. And also during this time, they would resume their training with Nest at the Autobots' new base in Washington, D.C., disguised as a Health and Human Services building. And finally, moving on to the main course of this video, Dark of the Moon. Now in Dark of the Moon, the twins are seen very briefly in the background behind Wheeljack, and then even more briefly in a scene behind Sideswipe. And then after that short scene, gone, never to be seen again, not even mentioned by any of the other Autobots. Not even the comics can help us out here since they were killed by Sentinel Prime, and that obviously did not happen in the film. Until today, I figured out what actually happened to the twins and how they were actually killed by Sentinel Prime. And it all starts during the freeway chase. As we can see, Sideswipe, Bumblebee, and Dino are escorting Sentinel Prime back to base, while protecting him from the Dreads, and the Dreads will come into play in a minute. As we saw in Dark of the Moon, Hatchet gets killed, and the two remaining Dreads, Crankcase and Crowbar, are chasing after Dino and Sideswipe. But not Bumblebee, since he was still at the bridge with Sam, letting him recuperate after what happened. And since Bumblebee was not at the city area with Dino and Sideswipe yet, they called in Ironhide for backup. Well, later, him and Sideswipe would take out Crankcase and Crowbar, making their way back to Nest. And this is where Skids and Mufflap will come into play shortly. As we see in the Nest scene, Dino goes inside, while Bumblebee goes to the right gate, along with Sentinel Prime and Ironhide. And since we do not see Sideswipe again from the shot until the Exile scene, he probably went back inside Nest as well. And later, after Sentinel Prime betrays the Autobots by killing Ironhide with the Cosmic Rust Cannon, he escapes to find where the humans put the pillars. And here's where Skids and Mufflap will come into play. As we heard from Lennox, the last thing that he said was,
We don't have enough men. Do not engage Sentinel.
and with that info in mind, we can determine that the Autobots at the Nest base got the memo. And the ones that were able to evacuate the base would be Ratchet, Dino, Sideswipe, and Wheeljack, since we would later see them once they would get exiled from Earth. But Skids and Mufflap would not be seen anywhere during that, which would mean that they would have to bite the dust. But how? Well, as we saw after Lennox gives his warning to the Nest soldiers, Charlotte Meering pulls up to the back gate of Nest, where we would later see Sentinel Prime going on a rampage, demanding the humans to give back his pillars. But as we see in this shot, there's already a path of destruction behind him, and this is where I believe Skids and Mufflap bit the dust. After receiving Lennox's warning, Ratchet, Wheeljack, Sideswipe, and Dino evacuated through the back gate of Nest, since they were closer to it. And since Skids and Mufflap were continuing their training at the time of the warning, they evacuated through the front gate, since it was the closest exit to them. But this would become fatal since they would meet face to face with Sentinel Prime, since you two would have to use the front gate while entering Nest. And after this weird encounter, I believe that the twins would ask Sentinel Prime what was going on, since they were not the most brightest ones. In response to this question, Sentinel Prime would pull out his Rust Cannon and shoot Mufflap, making him fly back because of the impact. Seeing that his twin brother was down, Skids lunged at Sentinel, but this would prove to be ineffective since Sentinel would pull out his sword before Skids would be able to hit him. And with a swift movement, he chopped Skids in half horizontally where the legs and the torso meet, where his body would fall next to Mufflap's as the two would endure their slow but painful deaths. Mufflap would rust away, and Skids would bleed out of Energon, along with the cosmic rust from Mufflap eventually spreading to him. As the two said their final goodbyes, they would enter the Well of Allsparks, sealing their fate for the rest of the Transformers cinematic universe. Well, it looks like that's all for this episode of Fixing Transformers. If you'd like to see another